So yesterday morning I was going to try and shoot a project early in the morning, and when I say early, I mean the sunrise was just after 4 a.m. So I needed to be there about an hour before then. And I took the car and I was driving from where I live to the location through pretty much central Tokyo, and there's nobody on the streets. It's completely empty. Tokyo's a funny place like that. It's kind of like a fantasy land. You just, Cinderella goes home at midnight, and I'm there going through these streets, which I have only ever really known as being busy. But you have the road to yourself, and it's not an open road. It's not a highway feeling like I've had in other places, but it's a sensation of freedom and of raw drive that can be very, very refreshing. And I was just going along, with the sort of the lingering heat of summer, and I got the window down in this vehicle, and I'm cruising down the road under these highways and through these cities, and it's an absolutely liberating feeling. It's absolutely beautiful. And I sort of was thinking, why don't I do this more often? I actually couldn't get to sleep the night before. I knew I was going to have an early start, and I'm usually a night owl anyway. I stay up late, and so I ended up just working through until I had to leave. Obviously, I crashed when I came back home after the shoot, but this feeling of being out there as the city awakens, as the world awakens, is incredibly powerful. And there's this one scene in that old movie, The Animatrix, which had an incredible effect on me when I was younger. There's a scene where these two soldiers are they're preparing for the battle with the robots, and they're sort of up there, and it's the dawn, and you just get a glimpse of these two guys, and they're just sort of kneeling down, and there's this dawn light, and they're silhouetted against that, and you know that they're ready to go. They mean business, and that moment stuck with me. Out of the entire movie, that particular moment stuck with me as kind of this wary, worldly awareness of what awaits us each morning when we wake up, because we do, in a sense, take the world upon our shoulders when we wake, and we wrestle with that every day. And going through that without sleeping is really incredible, because you're kind of more aware of it than if you were simply going through your routine of sleeping and waking, and cruising through Tokyo, seeing people doing their morning runs, seeing businesses start up, seeing the flower of the city blossom, in a sense. It just gave me this energy and this passion that everything could happen today. You're unlimited in what you can do, and it just really there was something about it that I was driven to kind of get to the bottom of, and I think it's easy to fall into a bit of a routine, and routine is a double-edged sword, perhaps. Like, of course, it's essential to get work done and to get things shipped, but also sometimes you just need to go and do something that's chaotic in nature to kind of stir the pot, to kind of bring a little bit more new energy into what you're doing, and to have something refreshing like that, to go out and just have that, to put yourself in a position where you have to do something. It can be quite powerful. And I came back from that, came back about 7 a.m. I guess, once I had finished the shoot, and I just felt energized and ready to do things. And the following evening I had a friend around, and we were doing a collaboration. So he's a musician, my friend Simon, and we were working together. So we sort of met, I guess, around midday, and so I had a little bit of a sleep after I got back, and then we met around midday, and we sort of worked through a concept and a mini project together for one day, and we stayed up a bit late to get that finished. And it was really exciting because we knew we had to get something done, and we kind of discussed a few different ideas, and we brainstormed some different things, but we sort of eventually settled on the moving image and sound, which is a classic combination, and you can't go wrong with it. And so we created this short piece, about 3 minutes long, using a video that I had taken, and I edited that and did a new grade on that, and he did the music to go with it. Well, in a sense, I I edited it to go with the music. He put the music together earlier on in the day. And so we spent the rest of the night working through the edit, and I also was experimenting with some 3D stuff and kind of going back to my roots, because I spent a lot of time when I was in high school, going right back, get the time machine out, going right back. I used to spend a lot of time playing around with like 3D Studio Max and like the Hammer editor for Half-Life 2 and these other world building software, and it's good to actually kind of get back into it. It's been so long, and I had forgotten, but having that energy of that morning that opened my mind, and then having my friend come around and having this collaborative energy of that's what can happen when you have creative human beings in the same room. Having that, I actually was able to bust out the 3D software that I haven't used in a decade really, and obviously it's been updated and it's new and it's in a sense it's unfamiliar, but I was able to create this thing I had in my mind after our discussion, and it just came so smoothly. It was really refreshing, because in the past I've tried to sit down and kind of recreate these creative creative environments that I had when I was younger. I used to spend a lot of time just making stuff in 3D, from nothing. I really enjoyed 3D modeling, texturing, actually rendering it out, and that's something I just haven't done for so long. And even now, if I sit down and try and do that, I don't even know where to start, because all of my work, and especially Derive, it's based on the real world and what was and what could be. And of course there's always a question mark there where you can interpret it, but it's not a blank slate. The scenes that I'm capturing and the places I'm going to have a story that goes beyond me. I'm just an individual with a very limited perhaps worldview. I've got a lot to learn still. But the city, as if you take a slice of the city, it's a history that's stretching back generations, multiple lifetimes. And you're only getting a glimpse of that, but it's a full slice from top to bottom. And so when you look at that, you're able to interpret it and weave it into a new story. But to create something from scratch and to create even just an item, you have to actually kind of work backwards in a sense, I think, to really create something good, which is to create the world that the thing lives in, and then the thing will come, if that makes sense. Because I used to do a lot of this 3D modeling, and I would kind of recreate stuff, I guess, from games that I liked or from movies that I liked. But looking back, I don't think there was really any true consistency in what I was doing. It was more like that, that first stage of learning, the parroting stage, where you're copying what you see, which is good, and you're trying to recreate that technically and just with the skills you have, as opposed to adding value to it. And so now I'm at the stage, I think, in my creative journey where I'm beginning to sort of ask that question of world building. What is the universe that we're creating here? And I think there's definitely universes, microverses that can exist between places. You can have a little snippet of something, and it gives you a question mark that leads to a whole nother world. But particularly, today, when I was working with, yesterday when I was working with my friend on this project, I kind of got a glimpse of the world that I could create, of what the future could be like. And I actually sat down and I started making a few little objects in 3D, just little things to go on to onto buildings that I could imagine would exist in this world that I'm beginning to conceptualize. And it was really refreshing, and I think definitely I had a connection with what I had done in the morning, which was to not sleep and to go and do a photo shoot on the other side of Tokyo at 3 a.m. in the morning. It was like just ripping myself away from that mundane reality that perhaps I had subjected myself to. Sometimes you just got to pull the band-aid off, and it really felt like we were onto something, and we weren't trying to create anything commercial. We weren't trying to we weren't trying to showcase anything. We were just jamming, if that makes sense. We were just flowing off each other and working through stuff, and it really it really worked, and it worked so well that I'm keen to do it again, even if we're not in the same room necessarily. Even if we're working remotely, in different corners of the world, even spending 8 to 10 hours with somebody working on something like that, where you're in touch with them and you know that they are focused on the same thing you're focused on. It's an incredible feeling, and I think it's something that's very easy to forget. And I think, if we all go back to our creative histories, like where did all of this come from? We weren't trying to go commercial from day one. There was this kind of innocent naivety to it. There's this passion to it that we all had, I think, when we got onto this. And if you can go back and kind of sample that, but also apply the technical skills you have and I guess the professional quality that you've attained over the course of your career, if you can use that without losing that kind of that core passion that you had back when you started, you can do incredible things. And I look at what I'm doing now, and it's like, man, the ability to manage projects and to get things done that I have now. I couldn't have even imagined it when I was just playing around in high school or whatever, But now it's like, man, because we're just kids back then. I mean, we didn't know anything. It was just kind of messing around as a hobby, right? But now we've got the skills and we've got the technology to actually make stuff happen. But perhaps we've become too preoccupied with kind of showing things off and of kind of creating something to a certain specification or a certain requirement, like basically, man, like go freeform, go and do something you've never done before and just go see how it turns out, And so that's the thing, like even with something like 3D, where it's a lot of technical stuff, and there's this kind of, again, this drive for photorealism, or even with photography, there's this kind of there's trends and there's kind of, seemingly objective requirements, but you can still experiment with stuff, There's still so much room to actually take the storytelling and the kind of the gist of it in a whole new direction. And I think that's really exciting. And the more you realize that, and the more you realize that you can engage that by spending time with other creative human beings, the more you do that, the more I think the passion kind of can let itself be free, and it will kind of guide you to what you need to create. And even today, I was working on some other stuff. So my friend, we did an all-nighter. We worked on this project, and he left this morning, and I've just been working on a bunch of personal projects as well and some other stuff, and it's just really refreshing to be able to just get down and work on this stuff without kind of that commercial backbone to it. Even though it's all built to a commercial standard, it's all good to go. Just doing it for the passion of doing it. And I think getting back to that is something that's really, really helpful, and I think it's something we should do more of.